Otherworldlyculture.com presents A Conversation with Robert Rusler, moderated by Michael Exler and recorded at the Horror Realm 2025 convention in Pittsburgh.
Shit. Should I tell the truth?
Yes.
Want me to open up? You want me to keep it real today with you guys?
Yes.
Or you want me to just bullshit you?
Nope.
Keep it real.
So, I grew up watching movies with my grandfather, and my dad would take me on the weekends, and we would see all the movies from the '70s. And I'm a big fan. And I love the spooky movies with Papa, and I love the action movies with Dad, And my dad became a Teamster at Universal Studios, and I would go to work with him. And I get to meet all kinds of iconic, great people. Burt Reynolds, Jack Lemmon, Sammy Davis Jr. Man, the list goes on. Peter Falk, Robert Blake, all these really fantastic people. And I met Goldie Hawn on Sugarland Express. I was just a little kid. I watched Richard Roundtree's stunt in Earthquake. So, the list goes on. I mean, I got to see all kinds of really cool things and meet great people. And I really wanted to be a stuntman. And my dad's buddy was going to get me into the Stuntman's Association. He said, all you got to do is graduate high school. And then he had another buddy named Pete that was head of special effects, and he showed me Bruce the shark from Jaws before Jaws came out. And I got really interested in that, and I was like, maybe I'll be a special effects guy. And then when I was in high school, I did a little modeling, and I hated it. I couldn't stand modeling. They kept telling me, Robert, stop smiling, right? They'd want me to, And then I met my manager, Dolores Robinson, and she got me into the door. And I started going to the Loft Studio in Hollywood, and I started studying the craft of acting. And to be honest with you, I was pretty intimidated in the beginning. My first day walking into class, I saw Sean Penn doing a scene from Hatful of Rain. And I thought, I can't do this. My mind always told me that I couldn't do things, but my heart knew I was born for it, So how do you get past that? How do you get past the dialogue of, I don't think I can, and meet it with your soul, your center that says, you can. And it's by preparation and hard work. So I started studying at that place and started going to auditions, man. That's how it started.
And so one of your first roles, you had I think it was a 2-episode stint on Facts of Life.
That actually came after Weird Science. So
did it?
Weird Science was my first job.
Oh, okay.
But I did Facts of Life after, and it came out right away, before Weird Science came out. So people thought that Facts of Life was my first job. But Weird Science was my very first job.
So how did you get involved in that film?
I went to an audition, for Breakfast Club. And I walked in, and John Hughes looked at me and he said, I'm not going to read you today. I said, what do you mean? And I studied all night, and it was for the Judd Nelson character. And he said, I already cast the movie. I already cast the part. And I was like, okay, cool, man, nice meeting you. And I walked out and I was like, dick. and he didn't hear me. And then, I had been going to auditions and thinking that I was paying my dues, and I was getting close on some things and I was getting frustrated on others. And I read the script, Weird Science, and I told my mom, if I don't get this job, I'm joining the Marine Corps. I'm going to take a break. And she goes, why? And I said, because this is me, right? This was me in high school. I was the bully without ever being physical. I would wreck everybody with humor, and then you gotta catch me if you want to get some. You know what I mean? And I went in and I read with the actor Craig Sheffer, and we studied for about 10 minutes outside of his office at Universal Studios, and I just said, you know what, I got everything to gain, nothing to lose. I'm going in only as the character, and I'm not saying a word. And I just went in and we started doing the scene together, and John started laughing about halfway through the scene, and he stopped us and he goes, "You're Max, you're Ian, you're cast." And I was like, "Wait, what?" Right? He said, "You're hired." And I fucking Forrest Gump ran, dude. Straight up through Universal Studios, right to the payphone, and I called my mom. And my mom goes, "Hello?" And I go, "Mom!" And she goes, "You got it." And I go, "I got it. And you know, at the studio, when a young guy's going like, "Yeah," everybody's going, "Hey, congratulations," right? And the cool thing about getting that job was I didn't have to join the Marine Corps, first of all. And on the very first day of shooting, because they Taft-Hartley me, that means they got me into the Union. And they rented me an IROC Z-28, right? And in 1984, that was a cool little ride. And my first day, I show up to work, and Joel Silver, who's the producer, who's produced movies like Matrix, Die Hard. I mean, one of the biggest producers in Hollywood, Predator. He was standing there like a proud dad, you know. And John Hughes was standing next to him, and he goes, "Welcome to your first job, Mr. Rusler." And I was like, "Thank you." And one of the drivers was walking over, and he goes, "Hey, Rusler, you little cocksucker, what are you doing here?" and they both looked at me like, "How do you know people?" And I was like, "Oh, no, long story," right? And I said to the driver, I go, Yeah, show me to my trailer, bitch, right? And on cue, my dad runs up, "Son, I got on your job, I'm on your job." And I was like, "Calm down, Dad." And they got it. They're like, "Oh, your dad is a Teamster." I said, "Yeah, man, I grew up at this studio, you know. I grew up here since I was a little boy coming to work. And that's where I got my first job."
What was the atmosphere like on the set for that film? I just talked to Michael Berryman, who was on the film for very little, and he said it was just so much fun, so much excitement. And so what was it from your perspective?
It was magical, really. I mean, working with John Hughes, you know, befriending Robert Downey Jr. So I told you guys that Craig Sheffer and I got cast together. About 2 weeks had gone by, and my brother whistled me, and I was surfing out at Toes Beach on an epic day, by the way. And my brother whistled me in, and I caught a wave in. I was like, "What's up?" He's like, "Dude, Universal Studios has been calling you. You got to get to the studio." And I'm like, "Oh, shit." Like, I got fired, like, as soon as I got hired. Like, my mind just goes to negative, you know? And I jammed over to Universal Studios, and the casting director came out and said, "I got some kind of bad news. Craig Sheffer fell out to do That Was Then, This Is Now with Emilio Estevez." It's a S.E. Hinton movie. And I was like, "Oh, wow, okay." And she goes, "But I got another guy here that just flew in from New York, and we want you to read together." And I walked into the room in board shorts, sand on my feet, and a tank top, and there's Robert Downey Jr. sitting there in a suit, and he's like, "What's up?" And I was like, "Hey, man, nice to meet you," right? And we went outside and rehearsed for about 5 minutes. And I swear to God, like, intuitively, I knew he was going to be my mentor. There was something about him that was impressive. There was something about him that was magnetic. And we went in, and the same thing happened with Robert that happened with Craig and I. We got about halfway through the scene, and John starts laughing and goes, "Oh, hold on a second." He goes, you're hired, right? Because we were just cutting up in there and just being ourselves. And that's how it started. So making friends with Bill Paxton, Anthony Michael Hall, Robert, we were cutting it up, man. We were stomping Hollywood out, to be honest with you. We were having a great time. Working with John was amazing because he was so creative, and he knew what he wanted when he saw it. And then when it was time to shoot, we would talk about the situation, the circumstance, and we would trade ideas, and then he would say, just go do it. And most of our stuff was improvised because he would just give us the green light to go, just do what you do. And an example is the very first scene was the icy scene in the mall. And so this is the very first scene I've ever shot in my life. I've only done work in acting class. And the biggest lens that I've ever seen came up on this crane, and after 2 weeks of rehearsal and feeling comfortable and being all stoked that I got the job and feeling confident, this lens came up into my face and I kind of froze for a second. And Downey's like, Husky. He called me Husky. Husky. And I was like, yeah. He goes, what's up? I was like, what do I do, dude? And he just goes, and I was like, the fuck? There's like the cast, the crew, there's like probably 400 or 500 people that are crowded around just spectating, and everybody's doing the same thing, like, what's with this lunatic? And he goes, be yourself. And I was like, oh. So instead of explaining what do I do, instead of talking to me about, the craft of acting or whatever, he just showed me by example, free up, man, just be you. Like, be uninhibited and let your magic out. And in that moment, the only thing that was scripted in that scene was check it out. That was the only dialogue. And it turned into that whole thing, $5, Finsky, big sale going on at Towel World. All that shit was improvised because we had the green light to just have fun and go for it. And so the rest of the movie was just like that. I mean, we were raging, we were having a good time. We were, making a lot of money. We were doing what we loved to do. And I started living with Downey up in Bronson Canyon. And he was living with Sarah Jessica Parker. And he started introducing me, to all these different, like, really cool filmmakers and actors. And now he's all three of my sons' godfather, and we're still tight today.
That's great. I actually read the last day of shooting on Weird Science, you actually had an audition for Nightmare, and someone drove you to that audition?
Downey did.
Was that,
yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Very cool.
He was like, he screeched up to a stop and he kicked me. He goes, go get a job. No, I when I got out of the car, I said, thank you for the ride. And he looked at me and he said, don't ever let anything get between you and your work. And then he peeled out and he took off. And I went in, and sort of the same thing happened with Nightmare 2 as what happened on Weird Science. Is I went in and I met them, and I was just myself, and they said, what did you think of the script? I go, yeah, it's good, but I don't know. They go, what? I was like, well, nobody really talks like this.
Yeah.
And they go, well, what do you mean? And I go, yeah, it's a little crass. And I could tell they were like maybe a little offended, And he goes, well, the director goes, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? I go, well, usually when you cuss like this, you do it with a sense of humor. And they go, give us an example. And I said, all right. And I flipped open the script, and it said, are you fucking her for car fare? And I was like, and the director goes, well, what would you say? And I was like, I don't know, you mounting her nightly or what, bro? And they were like, okay, give us another example. And I turned the page and it said, fuck you, asshole. And he goes, what would you say? And I was like, I don't know, bro, get off my hood, right? And they're like, okay, hold on a second. You see that dude down there sitting on the stairs by himself? I said, yeah. They said, we want you to go there and we want you to rehearse with him and we want you to come back when you're ready and we want you two to read together. And I went down and I met Mark Patton. And we started talking about the characters and we read through it a couple times and we hit it off right away. We went back up and we auditioned, and at the end of the scene, the director goes, you guys are hired. You're Jesse and you're Grady. And I was like, damn, this shit's easy. Right? And the best part about getting the job on the spot is when you go out of the room and there's like 15 other actors and they're like, good luck, bro. And you're like, yeah, later. Break a leg, dude. Right? And the same thing sort of happened there, where to this day, Mark Patton and I are still thick as thieves. I love that guy. You get to make relationships in this business that are so valuable, like those two girls sitting right there in the middle. Suzanne Snyder and Barbara Crampton, ladies and gentlemen. Oh yeah, she played my girlfriend in Weird Science. And Barbara played my girlfriend, oh, did you? Oh no, well she should have.
We had an affair.
That's right, we had an affair, that's even better.
Well, no, we kissed.
Jacob's wife. By the way, Barbara's a good kisser.
So I'm assuming you were aware of Nightmare on Elm Street before you got this role. Were you a fan of the original film, and were you kind of stoked to be a part of the franchise?
Absolutely. I was a horror fan. I loved all the horror movies growing up anyway. And I actually did go in. That was one of the auditions. I went in and met with Wes Craven on Nightmare 1, and Charlie Sheen and I went in back to back, and then after the audition we went and smoked a fatty and went to lunch, and we were like, fuck that movie. And then when the movie came out, I was a fan because I really loved Freddy Krueger's character, and Johnny was at that same acting class at the Loft Studio that I was studying at. So to see one of the guys that I was in class with get the movie and do so well was cool, because I really liked Johnny Depp in Class, and then so when I got the audition for Nightmare 2, I knew that it was going to be cool, but I also knew that I had to go in there and give it my own flavor if I had a chance of getting the job. Robert used to say things like, you can't show your chops in a job that you don't get, right? So the preparation was something that I learned from him, to really go in with your own ideas. And he would say, go in and show them who the character is instead of relying on them to tell you what the character is. And so the more that I started doing that, the more that I started landing roles, and the more that I felt confident that I had something to contribute instead of only what can I get or what am I not getting as an actor. It was a whole different way of approaching it, and I have him to thank for that.
I've interviewed a lot of people that were involved in the franchise, and they all say the same thing. He's sweet and intelligent and kind. Was that your experience with Robert?
Oh yeah, I mean, he's a Renaissance man.
I've heard that too.
I mean, he plays piano, he sings, he's an actor, he paints, he's an excellent father, he's a good friend, and I love watching people rise, and it couldn't happen to a nicer person, especially with all of his trials and tribulations, and people would say things to me from time to time like, dude, what's up with your homie Robert, man? Like, he's fucking up. And I would say, you know what? You don't know what it's like to walk a mile in his shoes, you know? And it doesn't condone it, and it doesn't condemn it. It's like, who are you to judge, right? And sometimes I feel like in my own life, sometimes, I mean, I've had tremendous ups and I've had tremendous downs in my life. I've had great success and I feel like I've had tremendous failure. And there's been times when I was on top of the world and bulletproof and invincible, and there's times when I wanted to take myself out. And I would have killed the wrong person every time that I thought that it was a good idea, when I started to lose hope or lose faith. And to watch guys like Robert Downey Jr., Josh Brolin, George Clooney, Johnny Depp, all these guys that I started with, when they make it, it's a win because I know who they really are inside, and it couldn't happen to nicer people. And then I go, man, where's mine?
So, quickly moving to another film that you were in, Vamp, with Grace Jones. What was she like to work with?
Crazy.
I was gonna say that she's as eccentric as she seems.
No, that's an understatement, man. Working with Grace was so cool. You know, she's another one, man. She speaks 8 languages. Another Renaissance lady, you know. Singer, writer, artist. And working with her was incredible because she just like introduced me to so much. And, you know, I got to meet Andy Warhol and Basquiat and Keith Haring and all these great people through her. And she would take me to New York and like introduce me as her leading man. And also, you know, working with Getty Watanabe and all of a sudden, man, I'm just brain farting because I'm gonna be 60 this year. What's his name from Meatballs? Come on.
Yeah.
No, the kid. He was with
Chris
Makepeace.
Makepeace.
Chris, sorry. Yeah, working with Chris Makepeace and Getty and Grace, and you know, it was such an opportunity for a guy like me, because now I'll keep it real with you guys. This is the part where I told you I'd keep it real. How does a guy like me, who went through the kind of childhood I went through, get to make it into the movies, right? You know, I'm not trying to paint some sob story. It's just like there was like all this love and there was all this dysfunction. And in the neighborhoods that I grew up with, and the schools that I went to, it was all bullies and drugs and violence, and it was crazy. And then being able to rise above and have a dream and work hard at it, and then start to attain, I was grateful to be working. And I was, you know, I was also pinching myself because it would feel surreal. And the thing that would keep it real was when between action and cut, when the director would say action, and then I was able in that moment to completely immerse myself in my own imagination and play pretend and make money for it. I felt honored, privileged, blessed, and stoked. And so being able to meet the people that I was working with was just an added bonus to, you know, really being able to fulfill a dream. Because I told you, my mind used to always say, I can't. But my heart knew. And so when the heart knows and you take action, then it quiets the mind, and then the mind and the heart start to work together, and it all feels attainable. And then it feels fulfilling and purposeful, right? So now I'm not just making money and getting, you know, accolades. I'm actually doing something that changes people and that entertains people, and I'll tell you a story about that. I was at a convention once, and this girl came up and she started crying, and I was like, well, girls haven't cried over me in a while. That's pretty good, right? Oh my God, it's Buzz. That hadn't happened in a long time, right? And I guess it was her friend said, hey man, like her brother died recently, and you were his favorite actor. And I was like, oh shit, no shit. Her friend was consoling her because she kind of lost it a little bit when she saw me. He said, yeah, man, like he used to emulate you and impersonate you, and he used to do all your shit from Weird Science. And on his epitaph, on his gravestone, it says, how you doing? And I was like, what? I made that shit up, you know what I'm saying? I was like, total improv in the moment. Like John was like, yeah, do your thing. And I was like, how you doing? How you doing? Right? I just made it up in the moment, and it's on this kid's gravestone forever. He died in a car accident or something tragic, horrible, you know? And I thought, oh my God, we have the ability to make an impression. That's all. We got an ability, we have the opportunity to inspire people. And I realized what a gift it was to be able to do it. Because there was also times when I took it for granted, and I took a left when I should have stayed straight or go right. And I had to learn my own lessons in that way as well, you know? And I gave that girl a big hug, and I signed her autograph, and then I signed one to her brother. I said, this is for you to keep, you know, as small as a gesture as it is. And then I was like, and that'll be $50, please. No, I mean, you know, being able to sign that and give it to her and give her a hug and know that it really meant something to her, really changed my perspective on what we're doing here, on what I'm doing here, you know. That's why when you guys come to the table, I like to love on you. Because without you, I'd have nothing, right? I've had some famous actor buddies, and they'd be kind of shitty to fans, and I'd say, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, without them, we wouldn't have anything, you know? And that's why I've always tried to be good to people. I try to treat people like the way I want to be treated. Like, the funny thing, when I was a kid and I would meet those stars I was telling you about, the biggest stars were always the most humble and the nicest, by the way. And I remember meeting guys like, you know, Dean Martin or Sammy Davis Jr., and they would take the time out to tussle your hair and look you in the eye and give you a moment of their time, and it was impactful. And now I try to just do the same thing the best I can, you know.
Sure. Yeah, so we have a couple minutes for any audience questions. Right here.
Making Thrash, and how was it hanging out with like Soy and Elva, all those guys back in the day?
Yeah, that was cool, man. Yeah, I did a skateboard movie in the 80s called Thrashin with Josh Brolin. And yeah, I got to play a hook. I was the leader of the Daggers. And, you know, growing up skateboarding and surfing my whole life, because I grew up in Southern California, LA, Hollywood, Venice Beach, Santa Monica, it's all my stomping grounds. And being able to work with guys that I looked up to when I was a kid was pretty cool. And I made more friends on that one movie than all my other movies put together. I'm still tight with Josh to this day. All those skaters, Asoy, Tony Alba, Jesse Martinez, Steve Olson, they're all like brothers to me. You know, we that was another example of getting this little kind of campy skateboard movie that turned out to inspire hundreds and thousands of maybe millions of kids, just like Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 inspired millions of people in different ways. How that story about doing Weird Science, you know, that little example of that little improv that turned into something that young man's sister cherished forever. Working with those guys on that movie changed my life. And each one of those times is like an experience that's etched in my soul, you know. I didn't have a smartphone through all this stuff, so I don't have all that stuff like we do now, where you take a video or a picture and you have it. It's all memories and the movie. And, you know, I have so many stories and so many experiences of the times that we had together and how we've had each other's backs all these years. And, you know, when my kids were born, when my parents died, when I wound up having to go to rehab and get sober, when I got a new movie, when I got married, when I got divorced, you name it, all these things in life, all those guys are there for me, and they support me and they love me. And I think that, you know, it's something that I don't take for granted anymore, and it's something that I realize that I've been blessed and lucky, and that I honor. You know, I honor it today. Yes.
What was it like working with Suzanne Schneider?
You know, it was really hard because all I wanted to do was see her naked. It's just a constant like refrain, you know what I mean? Look, she's like my sister today too, you know? It's like, I love you, Suzanne. Love you so much. She's one of the sweetest, most thoughtful, most giving people, you know? And it's kind of what I'm talking about with all my dudes.
Yeah.
You know? There's also a lot of women along the way that we've created and established relationships that are, you know, they last for life. And yeah, I mean, working with Suzanne was amazing. Just like it was working with you, Barbara.
That was my question.
What was it like working with Barbara?
No, but I'll say something.
I want to see you both naked.
No, but I'll say something. So, I don't know however many people have seen Jacob's Wife, but we played a couple scenes together in Jacob's Wife, and he was like a boyfriend from the past. And Robert is such a good actor. Like, we're sitting there and we're talking about how we're going to do this scene, and Robert's like, yeah, but man, we got to talk about what our past was and how, like, you know, the connection between us and what that was, and we have to, like, really dig into that and remember that in this one moment. Like, the two scenes I have with you are, like, my two favorite scenes from the movie, because you're just that good. You're just that good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When I was telling her all that stuff, she was looking at me and I was like, oh, this girl's falling in love.
Yeah, of course. You fall in love with our co-stars for sure in those moments, yeah. It was easy to do with you.
It was a great movie and it was really fun. I got movies coming out too, you know. I'm still plugging away, you guys. I've had to... like I said, you know, I've had a lot of success. I've done a lot of work. I did a lot of TV for a while, which kind of got me out of the movies for a minute. Back then, it wasn't this crossover. In the 80s, TV actors did TV and film actors did movies. And when I went from making movies, I got into the television show The Outsiders, which didn't even last long. We went one season. It was Francis Ford. Hey, where are you guys going? I'm just kidding. Say, hey! Something I said? I said The Outsiders. They're like, fuck this stuff. He was in the Fox TV series. He wasn't in the movie. Making that crossover back to movies was difficult. So I stuck in TV for a while, and then people will go, "Hey man, where you been, dude? Like, what happened to you? You were in all these movies, and now I don't see you working anymore." And I was like, "Well, dude, I'm in TV now." Oh, whatever, bro. Then they started crossing back over, you know, and now I've been, you know, doing a lot of guest stars, Davey NCIS and Cold Case, you know, all these shows I've been on, and Ray Donovan. I was on 3 episodes.
Good at Ray Donovan.
Oh, thank you. I played Gus O'Day and Ray Donovan. It was so amazing.
I have a question.
Yes.
What movies do you have coming out?
I got movies coming out, you guys. First of all, I just completed a movie with my youngest son, Johnny Ray Rusler.
I saw that on Instagram.
Yes, I'm so proud.
He wants to be an actor?
Yes, he does, and he's got chops. He's really good. So Johnny Ray's 16, and he's on the varsity football team at Samo High. He's been I do a workshop on Monday nights called the Hollywood Playground, where I wanted to practice directing actors, because that's what I want to do next, is direct movies. So I've been writing, and Johnny's been coming to class, and he's been killing it. And I got this opportunity to work in this movie, and I told the director about my son, and he met my son, and he cast him in one of the lead roles of the movie. And I got to direct the scenes with him and the director, because the director is also playing one of the roles, and he allowed me to direct some of the scenes. So I was able to direct my own son in a movie, which was amazing.
It's fucking amazing.
It's amazing, and it made me feel so proud, because this movie, he has a lot of range and depth in this character. There's a lot of emotionality. So it's not just, you know, a 16-year-old kid saying lines. Like, he's doing some really deep stuff going on.
What's the name of the movie?
Razor Boy.
When does it come out?
Oh, man. I'll keep you guys posted. I want you guys to follow me on Instagram at Robert Rusler, and follow Razor Boy on Instagram. And you guys can keep up, because a good buddy, Ash Adams, who wrote and directed the movie, that we're in post now, and I got another movie coming out called Garden of Eden, which is a pretty gnarly horror movie. I had to come out with another horror movie, you guys. This one, I got the lead role in this one, and excuse my French, but I fuck people up in this movie, big time. It's like gnarly and bloody, and I play this dark character, and I just had a blast making it. And then another movie called Pretty Boy. I got a movie coming out called Wine Thief, and I'm in the right now in the works to direct a movie that I wrote called Dominion.
I read it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I want to do, this is my thing, and if anybody steals it, go ahead and try. I want to do the Expendables for horror. I want to cast all my horror buddies and put them all in one big movie and blow everybody's minds.
Yes, do it.
Final girl.
Yeah, you'll be in it too. Do you do nude?
All right, on that note, thank you very much for taking the time, Robert. Stop and see me. Get some autographs, photos.
Thanks, you guys.